Hi, everyone. Welcome back to She Blames Podcast. Today's guest is Liesel. Hi, Liesel.
Hi, how are you?
So, can you tell our listeners about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Liesel Ulrich Verderber. I'm the CEO of Ever Widening Circles. We are a positive media company focused on creating media that matters. We write about all the stuff in the world that is proving that it is still an amazing world and that our future is bright. And we also have a community of people who are interested in making the world a better place through their work. So it's a personal and professional growth network called the Conspiracy of Goodness Network that we run to help connect all of the doers of good across the world.
That's awesome. So, why is the news media so negative?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. I think it's one that we've thought about a lot over the years, and we've seen sort of change and evolve to have a new sort of meaning, I think, in the past few years. And the reason why news is so negative, or appears to be so negative, is because the news is about reporting what's newsworthy, right? These things that actually don't happen all that often. And the things that don't happen all that often are actually things like crime, the latest, plane crash, natural disasters, etc. They are newsworthy because they are not constantly happening. But what is constantly happening is progress, right? We are every year reducing the amount of war there is. We are every year reducing the number of deaths for children. Every year we're increasing the number of children that get access to education. There's all these metrics that are really great that are slow. They're constant progress, and that's not what news is about, right? And so we have this skewed view in news of towards the negative because it is so rare that these things actually happen. And then to sort of compound that issue, the human brain is designed to sort of see the world in terms of what we see most often. So if we are consuming a 24-hour negative news media diet, our brains are going to be scanning for that negativity and that kind of signs of fear and danger all around us because that's what our brain is primed to do. And that used to be a very good, important thing when we were living sort of less dangerous or more dangerous lives, out in the wilderness or back, way back when. But nowadays, we don't that skill is sort of it's trapping us in this sort of negative downward spiral that we see in the news, sort of getting sucked into the news, and then also now that's reflecting out in our worldviews.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I never noticed that until you said something. Like, every time I get on my internet, it is always something negative, and I'm like,
Hmm.
well, why would I want to go travel if this is happening? Like all the negative stuff they're showing me, it's making me not want to go travel. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
Exactly. And it's a rarity. Those things are really a rarity. And it's so funny because you ask people around the world, I've been very fortunate to test the world and some of the, what people would call some of the bleakest places, outsiders would. But in every community you ask, is there somebody that's doing something really good in the world? And they'll point to the guy down the street that makes the best empanadas and also cares for the kids after school. They'll point to the mom in town who is like the mom to everybody, who's on the PTA and making the community a better place. Even within, our own country, every community they'll say over there is a bad place, but right here, we've got these people that are doing good things. And so I think one of the things that we very often forget is that if we are training our brains by having so much negativity around us to search for signs of negativity, we will see that first, even though that's not the real amount, the real balance of stuff that's good versus bad in the world. And that's not to say that bad things aren't happening, but that's just to say right now we have sort of an imbalanced worldview that needs a little bit of correcting.
yes, I agree. So what what can people do to change their online lives?
Yeah, so we have this thing called we call the four shifts, and it's four simple steps that you can do that they can change your online lives. So I think right now, because the world has been so online for the past year, we have been really seeing the world in terms of our online lives. But these shifts you can actually use in your real life now that we're getting back with people. You can use them in your real life, and they will do the same thing. They will take you out of those negative conversations and bring you into a more positive space with the people around you. So the four shifts, the first one is pause. So the most important thing any of us can do before we click on anything, before we open our mouth to start getting in an argument with our uncle, is we just need to pause first. So the biggest thing about the internet that's really important is what we click on, we get more of. Every click you make, every comment you make, everything that you do online, somebody is counting. And we have lived in, for a real long time, an attention economy, right? What crazy picture will get us to click on it? What clickbaity title will get us to click on it? You know, what argument will get us to just come in and start typing away, right?
Mhm.
So the more that we can just start to pause before we decide to make a knee-jerk reaction and, you know, click on that thing, put that angry comment in, or, you know, like I said, in real life, start the argument with your uncle. The more we can pause first, the more that we can sort of stop the cascading downward cycle. The second thing we can do is we can ignore more. And this is really critical because once we've paused, we can decide what to do after that pause, right? If we're just on autopilot, we're clicking away on things that, you know, are morbid, or maybe they don't suit us and we want to get into that argument, or even again in that conversation we want to like start diving in and get our point across. You know, if we ignore more, if we ignore more of the things that are causing us to feel, we call it the that are in the ABCs. So that's, we're clicking out of anger, we're clicking out of boredom, or we're clicking out of morbid curiosity. I guess C is curiosity, but like that kind of morbid curiosity is the picture of like the human form inside of the anaconda, or, you know, like this celebrity, you won't believe how they've aged. So the more that we don't click out of anger, boredom, just randomly scrolling on and on, or morbid curiosity, the more that we will be able to sort of control what our algorithms are doing. And I think a really important thing about social media is that we've all heard of the algorithms, right? Like the Facebook algorithm, the Instagram algorithm, the TikTok algorithm. It's watching what I'm doing. Well, algorithms, when they first came about, were there to serve us, right? They were there to bring us more content of what we wanted. And the way the algorithm said, oh, this person wants more or less of this, is based on our clicking habits, our share habits, our like habits, and our comment habits. So that's how the algorithms are trained to sort of assess what we like, or even how long we pause. I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you pause for a little bit on your Facebook feed and then you start to see more of that content, it's
Yeah.
because the algorithm is looking at what you're looking at, right?
Oh,
So the more that we can understand that the algorithm is there to actually help us and not hurt us, the more that we can start to notice the ways in which we can sort of shift our perspective. So if we're ignoring more of the stuff that causes us to feel angry or anxious or upset or wanting us to jump into the comments, the more that our algorithm online starts to change. And in real life, our brains actually run algorithms all the time. They're trying to make life really easy for us. So the more that we train our brain algorithms, like I was saying before, to ignore more of the stuff that gets our blood pressure up, right? I'm not going to engage with that conversation with that person that's making me want to just like rip their head off. I'm not going to, you know, jump down this person's throat for having a different opinion. I'm going to just pause first and then ignore more of the stuff that's causing my blood pressure to rise. Now I'm training my brain, and also now my computer on, and my social media on what I want to see more of in the world, right? And that brings us to, and I'm assuming based on this that we want to see more positive things, right? So we can do that. So we are pausing first, we are seeking signs of goodness and progress. Right now, we don't live in a society, and many of our brains are trained not to be looking out for positive things all the time, right? I think our initial reaction is somebody cuts us off in traffic and we're like, gosh darn them, like, why did they do that? Like, right? Our initial reaction is not like, oh, well, maybe their child is being born and they need to speed off to the, you know, hospital. So if we are seeking signs of goodness and progress, we're retraining our brains and we're retraining our click habits. And in so doing, we're retraining our algorithms. So we have to be active about this process. It's not going to come to us passively. We've already trained our algorithms passively by clicking on all the stuff that makes us angry. So it's time to seek out. Find creators on Instagram that make you feel alive and happy. Find podcasters and follow them that are making you feel alive and happy. Find people that are expanding your worldview. You know, that it's not the morbid curiosity, it's the kind of curiosity that says, wow, the world is really an incredible place. The more that you're finding stuff like that, the more that you're clicking on it, the more that you're showing interest in it, the more that you will train your algorithms, retrain your algorithms.
sorry,
And
I didn't know she was gonna do that. Come on, come here. My bad.
no, it's fine. I'm a dog lover. The more you retrain your algorithms to show you more of those signs of goodness and progress. Same thing when you're in your conversations with people, you know, really start seeking signs of goodness and progress in the world around you. It's time to start retraining our brains. I think a great example of this, a friend of my mom's, when we first got into the era of COVID, was coming back just stewing from going to the grocery store. How many people weren't wearing their masks properly? All the carts were, none of them were cleaned. Nobody was abiding by the rules of the aisles. And she was very angry and upset that this was happening. And we said to her, well, try doing this. Instead of tallying up the number of bad things that you're seeing, start tallying up the number of good things that you're seeing, that they provide hand sanitizer, that the little kids were even trying to keep their masks on, that people were abiding by the floor rules, that the cashier was extra super nice, trying to smile with their eyes. Like, start to notice those things, seek out signs of goodness around you. And now you're retraining your brain, which we've all got stuck on the negative news cycle. Now we're retraining our brains to care about goodness in the world. And we will do the same with our brain algorithms and our algorithms on our social media. So we have now paused. We have now ignored. We've seeked signs of goodness and progress. And the last thing is share signs of goodness and progress. And this is by far the most important thing any one of us can do. If you are listening to this podcast and you can't get someone else to listen to this podcast, the biggest thing we can do is share signs of goodness and progress, because that's how we start to change this negative dialogue about our times. There's a study done that only 25% of us have to change our habits to create any kind of large social change. So if just 25% of us decided to start sharing stories of goodness, decided that it was more important to be kind to our neighbors than to get into a fight about butternut squash in the microwave online, which is a real fight I have seen online. The F-bomb was dropped. It was a mess. I was like, we don't need comments until we can just not fight about butternut squash. The more we can share the stories, like we're doing with Ever Widening Circles, share the stories of people that are doing positive things in the world, that are actually making change in the world, the more that everyone will know about them. And we will have something to talk about that's meaningful. We will have something, instead of getting into the downward spiral that we all do, right? Oh, did you see that thing in the news? Yeah, terrible. The world's going to, we can instead have things to insert and share in that conversation. So the most important thing we can do out of all these things, once we have retrained our brains, is start sharing that with other people, either sharing the knowledge of how to do that or just sharing the good things that are happening in the world. So pause, ignore more, seek signs of goodness and progress, and share signs of goodness and progress. If you do those 4 things, you're going to see your news feed start to change. You're going to see the way you engage with the world online start to change. And in reality, you're going to start seeing how you engage with the real world, not just the virtual world, in an entirely different way. And you'll start to see more positive stuff come to you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I like that, because wow, my mom just had this talk with me, the same exact thing that you were just talking about. Every time I go and talk to her, it's always something negative. And she's like, I don't want to hear that. And it makes me upset. But now, speaking to you, I see why she does not want to hear that. Like,
right.
I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna try my best to be positive when I talk to her.
And it isn't a false positivity. I think I should say this right off, right here. It's not a sense of false positivity. All right. Like, we know that there are bad things happening in the world. That's the biggest thing for us at Ever Widening Circles. We want to, but in all the badness, no one's talking about the people that are coming in and being helpful, the ones that have solutions, the ones that are making change, right? I don't know if you remember when the Amazon rainforest was on fire a couple of years ago, right? And that was all we heard. Amazon rainforest on fire. The forest is going away. It's a disaster. Everything's a mess. Everything is going to be a disaster. Well, what we never heard about were people like this great guy who's part of our group of thought leaders that we talk about a lot, called Topher White. And he's found a way to take your old cell phones that you have sitting in a junk drawer somewhere and tune them to be able to hear when people are coming in and illegally cutting down the rainforest, which is a big part of why the rainforest ends up on fire. So he has learned that the problem is not that, there aren't enough people to go patrol the rainforest. It's actually that rangers can't hear the chainsaws, right? So he's made it a way that we can take something that we all have, old cell phones, tune them and put them up in trees. And then when they hear a chainsaw, the rangers will get a ping of where that location is and be able to go stop the cutting of the rainforest before it's even started.
Oh, wow.
Right? So what if we knew about those kind of things when the world is on fire, or when people are not, like when we're hear about disasters? We believe that we need to have solutions-based media, right? It can't just be all negative all the time. we need to have something more. And I think in your conversation with your mother, like that's sort of what we need to be able to have. We need to have more knowing about more content and more things in the world, more positive but meaningful content that allows us to have enriched conversations around some of the world's big problems, and do it in a way that doesn't make us feel like the world is not worth saving, but rather that there is a future that is really, really bright because there are people on the job fixing things.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I didn't even know that at all. At all. Wow. Because that never pops up on my news feed, anything like that. So
No, that's the problem. And that's why we need more of that sharing piece, is because if no one knows about it, Topher's climbing trees, fixing our problems, and we're all running around being like, nothing matters, the world is on fire. And Topher's like, I'm still climbing trees. I'm still saving the rainforest. Why are we not talking about that? So that's the important thing about all of this, is we've got to talk about positive things. We've got to know about the good things that are happening in the world.
yes, I agree. So how can people connect to the conspiracy of goodness?
Yeah. So the conspiracy of goodness is this great, it's a wave of goodness and progress that's happening all over the world. And the word conspiracy, obviously, it's got some connotations, but what it really means is, break it down into two words: con, which means with, and spirare, which means to breathe. So we really think that if we are in a conspiracy of goodness together, and there's this whole beautiful story that goes with that, you can go check it out on our website. But if we're to breathe together in goodness, right? If the people that are doing good in the world, the people that are climbing the trees, are connected with the people like you who have the energy to like make media that's important and positive, and are able to connect with the people that are the helpers in communities, that just, they're the ones that are organizing Relay for Life and March of Dimes and are on the PTA trying to make things better. If we can organize this ecosystem of people doing good that are feeling like they're toiling in obscurity, and give them a place to all come together under the conspiracy of goodness movement, and be supported through something like the Conspiracy of Goodness Network, we're creating something that can actually make change in the world and be able to connect all the people that want to do good with the people who are doing good, and be able to create something entirely new in this world that actually pushes us towards progress.
Wow, that's amazing. So, being a young female entrepreneur, like, what did you want to discuss about that? Being a young female entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that's most important about this, and I think anybody in your audience who is, either a female entrepreneur or somebody who's kind of an outsider to the entrepreneur game, or I don't even, game is the wrong word, the entrepreneur world, because the game makes it sound like a hustle, and I'm off of hustle culture. I no longer want to participate in hustle culture, please. The biggest thing is that you have to find a community of people that get you. And it has taken me since I graduated college years ago to get this. And it really only happened when like a thought leader kind of like nailed it, like told me, looked me dead in the eyes. She goes, "You are not for everyone." And that is sometimes the hardest thing for anybody to get. And it is the most important thing. She goes, "Why would you spend your time trying to convince somebody if you knew you only had an hour in a room with a bunch of people, and you knew that 70% of them would love you and 30% of them would hate you,
Mhm.
and you walked up to somebody who just hated you, and you spent your whole hour trying to convince that person to care about you, instead of just saying thank you, have a nice day, and trying to find the 70% of people in the room who loved you? Why
Mhm.
would you spend all of your time trying to convince that 30%?" And so I think, as as a female entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur who may not be like, look like, or be like the entrepreneurs that we see all the time that are, on the cover of Forbes and have all these networks, the more that we can understand there are people that want to cheer for us and cheer with us and pull us along when it's difficult, the more that we can understand that we will not be for everybody, and that's okay. And it's time we just move on and find the people that we are right for. We are going to find ourselves on a trajectory for success that is far faster than trying to convince every single person to like us, because A, it's not going to happen, and B, there are so many wonderful people out there that do want to support your hopes and dreams.
Wow. I feel like I needed to hear that. I really did. Because I was gonna give up on my podcasting because I'm like, not a lot of people are sharing, not a lot of people are listening. And then someone messaged me earlier today while I was at work, and he was like, I've been seeing a lot of people sharing your stuff. And I was like,
Oh,
really? And I was like, I haven't been sharing my stuff. Well, I have been, but not as much as he was saying. And he was like, yeah, and it's not even coming from you. It's coming from a lot of other people. And they're saying a bunch of positive things about you. I was like, really? About me? And I started crying at work, and my coworker was like, are you okay? And I'm like, people are listening to my stuff.
And that's important. I think one of the things, whether you're, I think particularly online, if you're a content creator, you know, we like look at these metrics, these people that have 2 million subscribers that get like 1,000 downloads the first hour they're up. Well, that's great. But, you know, if you got an article that had 50 people look at it, or you had a podcast that 50 people, 100 people looked at, okay, it's not a million. But if those 100 people, if you had to fill your living room with 100 people who loved your work, who thought it was meaningful, or 50 people, or 25 people, I think any number of people over like 10 would be overwhelming. If 10 people looked you dead in the eyes and said, your work is important to me, it matters, right? If 10 people just stood there and told you how much you liked you, and not let alone 50 or 100 or 1,000, right? Which somehow 1,000 became a small number. If those people were actually there, you would be floored. You would be, if you had to give a speech to all those people, you'd probably be quaking in your boots a little bit. And so this is really important, is that no, any number, if you can get your mom and somebody else to listen to the work that you're doing, and that somebody else and your mom shares it or whatever it is, right? You can grow little by little, bit by bit. And you've got to appreciate, if you have 10 people that love you, it's more important than 1,000 people that don't care, right? You will grow with those 10, you will grow with that 100, you will grow with that 1,000. And you got to start somewhere. And you've got to remember that if those were real people sitting in front of you, you would be absolutely overwhelmed by their energy.
Yes, definitely. So, in what ways can people get involved with volunteering and doing good in the world and self improvement?
Yeah, I think the number one way that I suggest, well, firstly, I know this is like a bit self-promo, but do get on everwideningscircles.com. We write so many articles that are geared right towards people who are in this moment of transition. They're looking for that next climb, that next step. And so many of our articles are geared toward not only helping you understand the wide world around you, but also how you personally can get involved. And that's, we think, really, really important.
Yeah.
So that's really important, is get involved there. And then if you want to get involved with a community of people that is ready to uplift you and is there to be a part of your self growth and your discovery, then the Conspiracy of Goodness Network may be the place for you. If you're ready to take that next step and really kind of dive into a community, it is probably the next place to go. But I think overall, the things that any of us can do, any one of us, no matter, whether you're just the kind of the person that loves a random act of kindness, or you're somebody that is running a big nonprofit, the most important thing you can do is to remember that there are people next to you that need help, that want to be helpful, and that if you share your story and you're open and honest with people, you will be able to find the people that you resonate with and that resonate with you. And I think that's how good work happens, right? That's what we need more of. We need more conversations where people are open to one another. We need more that sharing of that goodness together. And we need more people who are just, we say that goodness isn't something inherent in us. It is the result of our actions, right? And so we can choose goodness every day. And the more that we choose goodness every day, the more that we can build our capacity for goodness. And so we don't have to start off being the one that donates $1 million to a charity. We don't have to be the one that devotes our whole entire life to the nonprofit. We don't have to be the volunteer of the century. We can start by welcoming goodness into our days, little by little by little, and we'll grow our capacity for goodness and our connections with others who are doing good in the world.
Definitely. Like, I started donating $5 a month. Well, it's $8. $8 a month to the Freedom Riders. So
Yeah.
that comes out of my account every month. So I've definitely been spreading the word to other people. Hey, donate, donate, donate. Like, it helps people. It
Yeah, and
shows
I think that's the
care.
biggest thing. If we can get involved, we become kind of evangelists for things, right? Like my $5 can become that organization's $300 if I'm committed to like talking about the fact that I'm donating. Like I think so often goodness is done in the darkness. It's like if you brag about goodness, like it's not goodness anymore. But we have to talk about the ways we're doing good in the world and do it in a way that obviously isn't like self-centered and self-serving. Nobody really likes that. But if we do it in a way that's there to educate people And if your friend says, hey, I am wanting to do X or Y, I'm wanting to make a difference in the world this way or that way, and you have an answer, be like, I donate to this place. You should donate to it too. They're great. Or I volunteer at this place. You should try it out, right? The more we can share that kind of enthusiasm, the more we build this community in the conspiracy of goodness.
Yes, I agree. I want to thank you so much, Liesl, for coming on my show today and speaking with me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a delight.
You have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye. Hey, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for listening to my podcast and supporting me. I really greatly appreciate it because I've been getting a lot of messages saying that you all been seeing my work around, and it really makes me feel loved. So I hope you all enjoyed this interview with Liesl. If you would like to check out any of her organizations or volunteering or any information we just spoke about, you can go to her website. It's linked below. It's everwhiteningscircles.com. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So I hope you all have a great day, make great choices, and continue to listen to my podcast. I know I will have in the near future a lot of guests that will motivate you and be positive influences. I hope you all have a great day.